Hello and welcome to World News here on TVP World. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. A pivotal moment for Ukraine-Russia peace talks or yet another round of stalled negotiations. On Monday, the United States and Russia began discussions in Saudi Arabia over the ongoing war in Ukraine. Delegations from both countries are discussing ways to ensure the safety of shipping in the Black Sea with the long-term goal of a more permanent peace settlement. The American delegation is led by the senior director of the White House National Security Council, Andrew Peek, while Russia is represented by the chairman of the Federation Council Committee on International Affairs, Grigory Karasin. Moreover, taking part in today's meeting is the head of the Russian Federal Security Service, Sergei Beseda. The meeting comes a day after delegates from Washington and Kyiv had their own discussions. According to Vladimir Putin's aide for foreign policy, Yuri Ushakov, the talks are set to focus on possible initiatives to safeguard shipping in the Black Sea. Now, Monday's meeting comes on the heels of a gathering of U.S. and Ukrainian delegations in Saudi Arabia on Sunday to talk about the partial ceasefire on energy and critical infrastructure strikes. Our Kyiv correspondent, Oz Chatterjee, has more.
US President Donald Trump says efforts to stop escalations between Russia and Ukraine are somewhat under control. This comes as a Ukrainian delegation met with a US delegation in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, ahead of further talks which will include Russia on Monday. Now, Rustem Umerov, Ukraine's defense secretary, had this to say about those talks. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
We have concluded our meeting with the American team. The discussion was productive and focused. We addressed key points, including energy. President Volodymyr Zelensky's goal is to secure a just and lasting peace for our country and our people, and by extension for all of Europe. We are working to make that goal a reality.
So that was the view from the Ukrainian government. Now, on the US side, the US Special Envoy for the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, who seems to have taken over from Keith Kellogg, the Special Envoy to Ukraine and Russia, as the chief negotiator of these talks between the US and Russia, he gave an interview in which he discussed the way the US sees these discussions and how they are developing with Russia. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
I feel that he wants peace. The president had two very productive calls this week, or last week, I should say, one with President Zelensky, one with President Putin. I sat and listened to both of them. In both conversations, it was all about a lasting peace. Lots of progress got made last week. Now, I've been asked my opinion. So about what President Putin's motives are on a larger scale. And I simply have said that I just don't see that he wants to take all of Europe.
So Steve Witkoff there certainly seems to place a lot of hope that Vladimir Putin can be trusted to stick to his word in any negotiations with the United States. Now, the Ukrainian government will have a very different perspective on Putin and how he can be trusted to respect to internationally binding agreements, ones that he has signed with Ukraine, he has repeatedly violated. So if the US is hoping that they can achieve a quick ceasefire and that Putin can be expected to stick to those terms, the Ukrainians certainly don't see it the same way, even if they are certainly putting forward a very hopeful posture on these talks.
Vira Konstantynova, an expert in international relations and the former foreign policy advisor to the chairman of the Ukrainian Parliament, recently joined TVP World to comment on the practical steps needed for sustaining peace in Ukraine.
In terms of practical solutions, I believe that we need to think about not only European option, but also about the involvement of countries that are trusted. As we have already heard from different, statements made by Asian countries like China, we need to think about the broader coalition as well. But we need to understand that this peacekeeping mission, it's not the solution. That would be a temporary solution for a ceasefire agreement. We need to think broadly in terms of long-lasting peace.
Now, while prospective peace talks are taking place in Saudi Arabia, Sunday night, Russia launched its third consecutive attack on Ukraine's Kyiv region. One person was wounded. A 37-year-old man sustained serious injuries and was taken to the hospital. The Russian strike damaged multiple residential buildings and sparked a fire at a commercial enterprise. The Russian strike also targeted Kharkiv, where an agricultural warehouse caught fire after it was hit by a Russian drone, as well as Zaporizhia, where the Russian attack damaged residential buildings, leaving one person injured. The attack on Sunday night follows a massive drone assault on the region on Saturday, which left 3 people dead and 10 others injured. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Special Operations Forces destroyed 2 Russian Ka-52 and 2 Mi-8 helicopters in the Russian Belgorod region. And according to the Special Forces, the helicopters were destroyed by missile strikes, including those fired from a HIMARS rocket launcher. The state-owned Ukrainian Railways company was the target of a large-scale and sophisticated cyber attack over the weekend. According to its management, the restoration of all systems is ongoing. Now, in a statement, the state railway operator announced that the company's website and application became unavailable on March 23rd over a, quote, technical failure. The perpetrators, however, failed to disrupt railway traffic as trains ran without delay. The company added that due to previous cyber attacks, the railway operator had backup protocols in place. Now, Russia has launched multiple cyber attacks since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, with many Ukrainian companies and state agencies being their main targets. And now on to the escalating tensions in Turkey. Sunday night, tens of thousands of protesters took part in demonstrations across the country. Ekrem İmamoğlu, the main rival of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, was arrested. In response to the unrest, police used tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse the crowds.
Sunday night saw ramping up of the largest protest Turkey has seen in more than a decade. Crowds gathered near Istanbul's City Hall for the 5th night in a row, waving Turkish flags and chanting in front of a row of riot police. Officers could be seen firing water cannons at some of the protesters and using pepper spray. In total, rallies took place in at least 55 out of Turkey's 81 provinces, or in more than 2/3 of the country. In response, President Erdogan condemned the demonstrations and accused the opposition Republican People's Party of disturbing peace and polarizing Turkish society. Erdogan will also hold a meeting with the Turkish Cabinet of Ministers, where he is expected to comment on the ongoing demonstrations. The protests began after Ekrem İmamoğlu, the mayor of Istanbul, and Erdogan's main political rival, was detained and then formally arrested on charges of corruption. In the same week, he was due to be selected as the Republican Party's presidential nominee.
Hungary remains a roadblock on Ukraine's path to the European Union, with Budapest citing concerns over minority rights as its primary justification. As tensions simmer between the two neighbors, the issue has become another flashpoint in Hungary's increasingly strained relationship with Brussels.
Hungary's foreign minister once again opposed Ukraine's bid for European Union membership. Peter Szijjártó argues that Kyiv's alleged curbing of the rights of Hungarians in the Ukrainian region of Transcarpathia is a deal-breaker.
Despite the promises, Ukraine still hasn't restored the Hungarian minority rights taken away in 2015. Until that changes, there can be no progress on EU accession, as Kyiv's minority policy remains unacceptable.
In 2017, Ukraine made the Ukrainian language mandatory in public schools. While aimed at bolstering national identity, the development raised some concerns over minority language protections, including Hungarian. However, Kyiv promptly met with Budapest to reconcile the situation.
They made an agreement, but later on Budapest stepped back from that, because in that way they can still use as a pretext that case to block any movement which makes Ukraine closer to EU.
Most recently, EU leaders rejected Vladimir Putin's request to halt military aid to Ukraine as part of the ongoing ceasefire negotiations. All except one, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban.
It's simply anti-European when one person blocks decisions that are important for the entire continent or that have already been agreed upon.
Frictions in Transcarpathia worsened when Orban's government gave passports to the ethnic Hungarian community in the region, despite Kyiv's ban on dual citizenship. In 2018, the Hungarian consul toasted new passport holders, saying, quote, "Don't tell the Ukrainian authorities."
So the Hungarian government unfortunately used the Hungarian minority case to block any Ukrainian initiative, and Hungary became the Trojan horse of Putin in the EU.
Although Hungary did not endorse military support for Ukraine at the Brussels Emergency Summit, the leaders of the remaining 26 EU countries published their own conclusions independently of Hungary. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Gatabishchan.
The Israeli military continues to carry out air and ground operations in the Gaza Strip. On Sunday night, an Israeli airstrike hit a hospital in southern Gaza, leaving part of the building in flames and causing multiple casualties. According to the Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza, Sunday's attacks resulted in 41 deaths. The Israeli Defense Force confirmed it carried out a strike on a, quote, key terrorist in the Hamas terrorist organization. According to the IDF, the man was operating from inside the hospital. However, Israeli authorities did not share the target's identity. Additionally, on Sunday, the Israeli military said that IDF troops concluded the encirclement of the Tel al-Sultan district in West Rafah. According to Israeli officials, the purpose of the operation was to reinforce control and expand the security zone into southern parts of the Gaza Strip. After much anticipation, it's now official. Canada will hold snap elections on April 28th. On Sunday, Canada's newly appointed Prime Minister Mark Carney called for the dissolution of Parliament and announced a general election. Now, Carney, who took over the Prime Minister's post from Justin Trudeau less than 2 weeks ago, will campaign for the Liberal Party. Now, during his speech outside Rideau Hall, he told Canadians that Trump's tariffs were the most significant threat of our lifetime. He also called for a mandate to deal with Donald Trump and the threat that his tariffs pose to Canada. Now, Carney's main rival is Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre, known for a more confrontational approach to politics, similar to that of Donald Trump. And moving on to the world of sports, Monday night, Poland will face Malta in the Football World Cup qualifiers. Robert Lewandowski's team has a shot at redemption after Friday's game against Lithuania, which was won by the Poles 1-0, albeit in a very underwhelming fashion that disappointed many fans. Now, Poland is seen as a favorite against Malta, but apart from a favorable result, many fans wish to see a more offensive style of play. The Polish national team is in a group together with Lithuania, Malta, Finland, and following Sunday's UEFA Nations League quarterfinal, they were joined by the star-studded Netherlands. Only one of these teams can qualify directly to the 2026 World Cup in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. The runners-up will have to go to the playoffs to win a spot at the tournament. And that's all for this edition of World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching, and stay with us for more.